that is made out of a durable vinyl rather than being foam with a sticky back. I really don't recommend that. And I've got the package here just to show that this says permanent nail on. So that means that it is intended to be installed with a hammer and nails that will keep it in place permanently so that it can withstand the use of rising and closing the window.
That's for sealing the windows.
Exactly right.
What else? What else have you got to show us on the table?
Well, I have one more thing to show you to do with air sealing, and that's it's called Great Stuff. It's a can of foam insulation, and this is for larger gaps, which you tend to find around the plumbing penetration. So if you look under the sink and you see where the plumbing goes into the wall, very often they've cut a rather large hole there, big enough for the pipe to go through and plenty of air to go through also. You don't want the air going in and out there.
And this is what, a spray-on product?
It is. It is a spray product. This one doesn't have the tip on it, but you usually would then have a little nozzle with a tube on it, so you can point it and be very precise with it. It then foams up. I mean, it really will expand, so you want to be kind of conservative, and you layer it in there, you let it expand, and then you fill it up the rest of the way.
But that wouldn't prevent future plumbing, if you have plumbing problems.
Not permanent in the sense it can't be removed. It's easy to remove in that respect.
Now, I see down at the other end of the table a bucket and a brush. What is that?
Well, that does take us up into the attic. I think that the last thing I would say is that...
if that's for the attic, we're going to talk about
we'll get to that in just a moment.
At some length. Well, now, aside from what you might do in the attic, if you did all of this to weather seal your house, the doors, the windows, the electrical outlets, what percentage might you save in your utility bills by doing that?
It really will vary by the particular house. So depending on how leaky your house is in the first place, you may have a very high energy bill, and using these air sealing measures, you're going to get a very significant savings. For a house that is less leaky, of course, you'll have a little less savings. The other factor is how much do you use the heating and air conditioning system. Some people are opening and closing their windows at times, using blinds to let the sun in or keep the sun out. So it is actually not a simple matter to put a number on it. But
are there any statistics about people who have done this sort of range of what percentage that they've experienced in savings?
As I said, that range is actually really rather remarkable, but I would say that you can expect somewhere in the vicinity of 10% to come just from this kind of improvement.
And this is not these are not expensive improvements. So
these are not expensive improvements.
So that you could recover these costs rather rapidly.
Absolutely so, and I think that probably is the feature that's most appealing about these sets of improvements. There are some other things that you can do that are certainly more expensive. Insulating your home is extremely important. It costs more, but it will save you all of that money back over time.
Okay. Now, you did mention the attic.
Yes, and actually,
most of us do not climb the stairs into the attic.
That's true. So there are a few things in the attic that someone working to make energy efficiency improvements knows to look for. The very first thing is the insulation. Do you have insulation in the attic? That is the most important place for your insulation. Heat wants to rise, and in these cold times that we're having in this winter in particular, you want that blanket of insulation to keep the heat in the home, so it's not just escaping. There are many different kinds of insulation. I've brought just one today. This is the cellulose insulation. It can be blown into the attic. You'll see it's rather fluffy, and you may have actually seen this before. It's a pretty common product. There, again, are many other types of insulation products that work well. This one happens to be made out of recycled newspaper. It's a great reuse of a product that then really enhances the
when you go into an attic, there's the floor or the ceilings below it, and then there's the roof line.
Right.
This sort of product would go on the floor.
That's absolutely right.
Then I presume there are other products if you wanted to seal underneath the roof.
Yes, and the two strategies are both very good. one of the advantages of insulating at the roof line is that for homes that have the air conditioning ductwork system running through the attic, you are now bringing that into semi-conditioned space, and that helps to reduce the temperature extremes that those ducts are having to deal with when they try and bring you that comfortable air in the house. So you could imagine in the summertime, for those who have popped their head up into the attic, it takes no time at all, and you are sweating. It's really hot up there.
Now, what product would you use if you wanted to seal the roof, underneath the roof line? What would that be?
The typical product that is being used for that is a spray foam insulation. It's actually quite similar to what you have in the can, but it's professionally installed. It tends to be more expensive, but it has the value and benefits that go along with that, not only for its insulation qualities, but also for air sealing. It is actually doing both of those things at once.
Now, is that something that would require professional installation?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And that would be then the reason that many people do, in fact, insulate on the floor of the attic,
because
between the floor
joists. You can do that
joists.
yourself.
You can do that. The cellulose insulation can be blown in. It is equipment that you can get when you buy the insulation from the store.
Yes.
That's an appealing, not least of which for the cost.
I see on the floor beside you a familiar product to me, which is sheets of insulation of some kind. How is that used?
So this actually is for wrapping a hot water blanket. Right. Another thing that you would do inside of the house, and you'll see that there are two aspects to this. It has the fiberglass insulation on the inside, and it has this reflective foil. This is actually keeping the radiant heat inside the tank for your hot water heater. Of course, that hot water heater is turning on all the time. It's going on and off. It's kind of like having a big pot of water on the stove. And it's in some respects a similar concept. If you want water to stay warm or to get warm, you put the lid on. You don't want all that heat escaping. This is wrapping that in an insulating blanket for some of the same purposes.
And that's something a person can do himself.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very inexpensive. That it has a return on investment. It's right away. It's within a matter of just months.
All right.
The product, though, you notice how reflective and silver that was. When we had that little thump earlier, it was actually this roll of radiant barrier that is a product for the attic. It's using some of the same principles. This is reflecting radiant heat. Your home is, having sun on it throughout the day. That sunlight is actually heating up the inside of the house with heat waves, so that's radiant heat, that is primarily responsible for why the attic gets so very hot. And it is typical in New Orleans to have summer attic temperatures in the vicinity of 140 degrees. If you do have your ductwork running through the attic and it's trying to bring cool air into your rooms, you can appreciate how hard your air conditioner is having to work to get through that intense heat and to make your home comfortable.
But now, how is that used? How is the...
Yes. So you mentioned the roof line. One option, as you suggested, was to put insulation at the roof line, and if you're using something like a spray foam insulation, it's probably accomplishing the benefits that radiant barrier would accomplish. So you would use the radiant barrier alongside insulation on the floor of the attic. So if you have insulation on the floor of the attic and you'd like to take the next step and make your attic temperatures drop, make your air conditioning system more efficient in that respect.
And you attach this to the rafters? Is
yes,
that what
you sure do.
That's what you have a staple
That's
gun
right.
over here?
Yep, I've got a staple gun there.
But you would attach this to the rafters without any insulation behind it. This
That's
radiant
correct.
barrier functions on its own.
That is correct. And it is not a replacement for insulation. In the attic, the first thing that you should do is to make sure you have insulation. So if you have insulation already, and if that insulation is on the floor, radiant barrier could be a good next step. I've got just a small sample of it here, but as you indicate, what you do is you spread this out in long strips, and then you use the staple gun to click down the rafter. Probably 4 or 5 staples per sheet that you put up on each rafter. So then you would just kind of progressively